good evening, and thank you for tuning in online tonight to our Wednesday night broadcast at Victory. We're so thankful for each and every one of you that tunes in for all our services, whether it be on Sundays or Wednesdays. We're just very, very thankful for that. One of the things that we strive to do here is to develop a deeper walk with the Lord as well as deeper connections with one another. And we do that through groups, small group settings that meet here on campus. And we would love for you to be a part of these groups if you aren't already. We have multiple times that they meet, Sundays and on Wednesdays. Tonight, right after we hear from some special music from our worship team, we're going to move into one of those groups and let you hear and experience the teaching. We hope and trust it's a blessing to you tonight. Thank you so much again for being here this evening.
Do you ever find yourself asking God where He's been? Ever get up out of bed saying, I can't do this again? Have you ever been afraid of what tomorrow's gonna bring? And you're facing it alone, at least that's what you think.
I can tell you after going through that valley, even though I couldn't see it at the time, it was in my weakest moments that He held me, and I know you'll find
He will carry you.
When you can't go on, He will be your strength. When your strength is gone, He will lift you up. He will be enough to get you through. When the road is long and you want to quit, 'cause you think you've got nothing left to give, you can fall apart, fall into His arms. He will carry you.
When you get the kind of news that you'd hope you'd never hear, when you're chasing down a dream just to watch it disappear, when somebody that you love turns and walks away, and they leave you standing there with shattered faith.
You don't have to pick up all the broken pieces. You don't have to try to cover up the scars. You can always run to Jesus and fall into His arms. He will carry you when you can't go on. He will be your strength when your strength is gone. He will lift you up. He will be enough to get you through. When the road is long and you want to quit, 'cause you think you've got nothing left to give, you can fall apart, fall into His arms. He will carry you. His heart is never weary. No, He's never tired. Through the toughest fight, through the longest night, through the flood and through the fire, He will carry you when you can't go on. He'll be your strength when your strength is gone. He will lift you up. He will be enough to get you through. When the road is long and you want to quit, 'cause you think you've got nothing left to give, you can fall apart, fall into His arms. He will carry you.
Welcome to Wednesdays in the Word. And we have been going through several different things through this time. We've talked about some miracles. We went on some things in Acts. We haven't quite finished that up yet, and we'll get back to that. But new year and 2022, and the theme of our ministry this year is faithful, just simply the word faithful. And we know that the Lord is faithful in our lives. And the idea that we need to be faithful is the one in question, right? We know that there is no doubt that the Lord is faithful to us, and He will establish us, as our theme verse is, and will also help us from evil. And we'll dig into that a little bit more too as the year goes on. But today I wanted to talk about the idea that sometimes we think we are more faithful than we really are in certain areas in our life. There's a difference between actual faithfulness and perceived faithfulness. Actual faithfulness versus the perception or a perceived faithfulness. What would you say the difference there is? We'll grab this stool here. What's the difference between actual faithfulness and a perceived faithfulness? Anybody? Don't be shy. Okay, that's good. Is that camera still on me by chance there for those who are watching online? Okay. All right. Somebody else want to add to that? Good. What would you say, and I'm going to need some interaction now, what would you say are, let's go to the top 5. Top 5 areas in our life that we probably need to exercise most faithfulness. Okay, giving. Prayer. That's 2. All right, spend some time in God's Word. That'd be 3. Witnessing be 4. Let me know the area of your life that you think would be one of the top areas that we need to exercise faithfulness in. Actions? Okay. Woo! Now we're getting somewhere. Because of the 4 things mentioned previously, those are good. But I think before we get faithful in any of those areas, there's some other areas of faithfulness that are necessary. And most of the time we think about, okay, being faithful as a Christian, being faithful as a person, what is that? It is, attendance, giving, spending time in devotions, praying, witnessing, telling people about Christ. I mean, those are the things that surface real quick. And those are the things that are going to make you, have your eyes gloss over a lot of times. You're going, oh, okay, where are we going to go with this? I've heard this before. I'm going to feel guilty because I know I'm not as faithful in this area as I should be. And here we go. Those aren't the areas we'll talk about. I'm not going to talk about any of those particular areas. Now, we may get to those, and there may be elements of those things. But let's talk about, because most everybody in here grew up in church, or at least you have a history of church. And we all have been taught the importance and the necessity of being faithful, right? I mean, that's just a understood element of the Christian life. But can I say that even though we might be present, as you mentioned, or consistent in doing something, doesn't necessarily mean we're being faithful. It goes back to the actual faithfulness versus a perceived faithfulness. All right? For instance, somebody could be here every time the doors are open, most of you are, But does that mean that you are truly being faithful? Or are you just kind of fooling everybody, including yourselves, by an outward or a perceived faithfulness? I mean, there are people who show up every single week just because they're here. Yeah, they may be faithful in attendance, all right? And that would be an actual aspect of it. But doesn't sometimes when people, you see them all the time, you think that maybe there's more elements of their life that are more faithful in? Maybe there's a perception there that they're more faithful than they actually are? Because you could be here in body, that's about it, right? You've been there, right? You show up because you know that's what I'm supposed to do. But, oh man, it's like that lady that Sunday morning, I'm walking down the hallway. She's walking in. Good morning. She's late. You could tell it's been one of those kind of mornings. And she said, morning, preacher. She says, today is all about surviving, not thriving. That was literally her answer. And I was like, I understand where you're coming from, ma'am. I get that. Because there are those days, right, where we just need to make it through the day. You know, the idea of actually winning the day is so far removed at that point. We just want to get through the day. And a lot of times that's the way it is in our Christian lives as well. It's just a matter of surviving. And the thriving aspect of it is kind of like a pie in the sky thing on that particular day. Here, look. So the first 5 areas of faithfulness I think that we need in our lives, and we're only going to get to one of them today. Number 1 would be our hearts, if you're taking notes. Number 1 area of faithfulness, I think, in our lives, and is going to be our hearts. And if you want to put in a parenthesis to define that, that's how we feel, okay? Hearts, how we feel. So, first area of faithfulness. The second area of faithfulness that we have to get a hold of would be our minds, okay? And your little sub, to that would be how we think and what we think about. So our hearts is about how we feel. The area of faithfulness comes to our minds is what we think about and how we think. A third area then of faithfulness, and by the way, we'll never be truly actual faithful in our lives unless our heart is right? Unless our mind is right. Because that's where we mess up and we start getting the perception of being faithful. And we fool ourselves so much. Just because you get up and you read, we're going to acknowledge some folks on Sunday who read through the Bible this year. Just because you get up and you check off that box that you read your verses for that day, doesn't necessarily mean that we deceive ourselves in thinking, well, we've accomplished, what we're trying to do that day. Well, we got the check box checked, but where, how did it benefit us? Did we do it? It was 11:58 at night. We got to run to it right quick so we can say we did it? Or are we making that priority to say, what am I getting from this day? Lord, speak to my heart today, even though I'm reading in Exodus 37, which is actually Exodus 37 is not a bad chapter. But, there are those Leviticus, right? When you're going through the law, it's difficult sometimes to stay on it and stay honed in on it, and that's where, I'm getting off track here, but that's where really we ask the Holy Spirit, Lord, help me here. Holy Spirit, would you just influence my heart, my thinking, my mind right here. Help me hear from you today. I always encourage you, by the way, if you're reading through in the Old Testament, to complement that reading with some Psalms or complement that with some New Testament reading, okay? If you spend about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days, 12 days in Leviticus and that's it, it's going to be tough. You just want, best one of those, you just kind of get through it. But if you kind of couple that with a proverb for the day or a psalm for the day or some New Testament, it'll assist you there and the Lord will help you there, some of that. All right. The third area of faithfulness, attitudes. So we got our hearts, how we feel, our minds, how we think, and what we think about. When it comes to our attitudes, the definition for that would be the combined effect of how we feel and how we think. All right? So we talk about our hearts, how we feel. We talk about our minds, how we think. Our attitudes then is a combined effect of where our heart is and where our mind is. All right? And our attitude takes place before our actions. All right? I'm gonna work through that. I don't expect to get it all right here. I'm just kind of giving you the top 5 things right here, and then we're going to go break down each one of them individually. All right? But our attitude is a combined effect of how we feel and think prior to what we say. All right? Or do. Okay? So going along this vein here then, hearts, minds, our attitudes, what would be one of the next 2 top 5 areas of faithfulness? I'm trying to exercise your mind here. That'd be one. What would be the other one? I already gave you a hint. Define the heart. What is that? How we feel. Define the mind. Or what we think about. What's the next one? Our attitudes. Define that one. Combination 1 and 2. Before we speak. Or do it. Before we say or do anything. So the 4th area then would be our words. Okay? Our heart, our mind, our attitudes, and then our words. Or our mouths. All right? And words, what I'm talking about here is what we say and how we say it. Okay? What we say and how we say it. If our heart's not right, if our minds aren't right, if our attitude's not right, you can bet your bottom dollar what you say and how you say it's not going to be right. Right? And you ask your spouse. I can ask your spouse about that one. She'll tell me or he'll tell me. So, our words then. That's what we say and how we say it. And then, yes, Brother Mahan, and to Ms. Gallant, you said earlier, our actions. And that sub would be what we do, right? What we do. So that would be the definition of that. So those are the 5 areas that we'll be walking down here for a little bit as we start off 2022. Like I said, I'll probably utilize these. You may hear these again on Sunday mornings coming up. So if you do, don't tune me out. Listen for a new nugget that you didn't get on these mornings, all right? So let's look at a couple verses right quick that are core to this study right here, all right? If you guys, Brother Holland, if you'll look up 1 Corinthians 4:2, Brother Mahan, would you look up Matthew 25:21? All right, read it anyway. Somebody has King James, read it in Matthew 25:21. Brother Hawkins, you got that? Matthew 25:21. And you can have 25:21 and verse 23. We'll read those. All right. So you got 1 Corinthians 4:2?
Yes.
Let's read that.
Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful.
Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. No, we're talking about faithful here. All right. Stewards are what? What is a steward? A caretaker. A manager. Right? We're all stewards of what God has given us. We learned this in our Stewarding for Life revival, in our stewardship conference. All right. We are, God gives, right? Remember that? And God loans, God watches, God rewards, right? Anyway, so more is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. Matthew 25:21. Look at my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought.
Yeah, no, I want you to read it too. And what do you got? New King, ESV?
New International.
New. All right. Read, what does it say there? Matthew 25:21. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. You know what? I'm getting to that point now where I understand that. I had to get those dual contact things. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right, go ahead.
His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness."
Very good. Verse 23 is pretty much the same thing right there. His Lord said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord." Basically, those are the same two verses right there. So he's rewarding the faithfulness of the steward, of the managers, of the servants. Right? That's what he's doing there. We talked about that in our stewardship. God rewards. Right? He rewards our faithfulness, all right, being a good steward. So the command, the cry for faithfulness is evident. It's well known. I mean, in a marriage, the most critical element, one of the most critical elements, is of being faithful to one another, right? I mean, you're not going to have a relationship if there's unfaithfulness in the relationship. And that goes more than just the physical bonds. That goes in a lot of areas, right? Getting there is the tougher part, though. In our lives of getting faithful. I told you I was listening to a book the other day. I was doing some driving. I couldn't read, so I was listening to an audio book. And I had heard that it takes 21 days to create a habit. Now, I don't know. The guy I was listening to the other day said it takes 66 days to create that. It takes over 2 months, and so they give a few extra days in there. I don't know how long it takes to create a habit, to rewire some things in your body. If you want to get up at a certain time, you have to do it how many days in a row, and it automatically does. I don't know. But if we're going to be faithful in some areas, we have to have some repetition, right? We have to stay after it. And it's like I said Sunday, quit quitting. Quit quitting. In too many areas in our life we have failed at, or we're not as successful at, whether it be business, whether it be material things, or physical things, or spiritual things, because we've given up. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I know every one of us in here has started on to do something, and this was our goal, but we quit. We just gave up. We finally, for whatever reason, a variety of reasons, I don't know, we lost interest. Got too hard. Going to use an Old Testament individual to learn about the faithfulness of the heart. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today, our first area of faithfulness. And I don't think we'll ever be truly as faithful in many areas of our lives if we don't get it started first in our hearts, all right? And I mentioned the heart deals with what? How we feel. Okay, so Judges chapter number 6, Judges chapter 16, all right? Samson is our man. That's one of the strongest men in the Scripture, and there's a lot going on in his life, a lot of things that he learned. We're going to discuss him today. All right, let's look in Judges chapter 16. Let's start in verse number 5. We'll kind of discuss the whole situation right here. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her. This is Delilah, right, the woman who enticed him, and said unto him, entice him, see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him. Judges 16:5. That we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee every one of us 1,100 pieces of silver. So she was getting paid handsomely to betray him. And Delilah said to Samson, tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. So, leading up to this, we know that Samson was a Nazarite by his vows, and there were certain things he couldn't do. Couldn't touch a dead carcass. Couldn't not have any wine whatsoever. He didn't cut his hair. There were several things along those lines that he vowed to uphold. He was wreaking havoc on the Philistines in the land there. I mean, he had already killed a bunch of them, set some fields to fire with a bunch of the foxtails, and there's just a lot going on. Busted down some doors in one of the cities and carried it up, and I mean, he was just he was a menace to the Philistine society. God was going to use him as a judge, as a ruler, as a deliverer. And it sometimes seems muddy to me a little bit, his lifestyle and things that he did, and kind of convolutes, I feel like a deliverer would be, but nonetheless, that's whom God chose to do, and I'm so thankful that God uses all sorts of people, right? And he uses the abase, right? So Samson then has been a nuisance. He's been an enemy of the Philistines. They wanted him removed from the equation in their life. And so this woman, he found a new girl, right? And they kind of went around him, got to her, tried to get to him. And so she was encouraged to bribe him, to do whatever was necessary. I mean, whatever, in order to get to the heart of the matter. That's what we're talking about today, the heart, right? So Samson was brought up in the ways of the Lord. We know this because of his record, that his heart wasn't faithful necessarily. Why do I say this? In Judges 14, he wanted a woman of the Philistines. His mom and dad tried to talk him out of it. He's like, no, get her for me. His response is, get her. Judges 14:5. Then went Samson down, his father and his mother, to Timnath, and came to the vineyards of Timnath. And behold, a young lion roared against them. So, number one, he wasn't supposed to be down there near the vineyards anyway, right? Because he wasn't supposed to have anything to do with wine. And on the way back, this right here happens. After a time, he returned to take her. He turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees, and honey was in the carcass of the lion. So on the way down to get this girl, he shouldn't have anything to do with in the first place. He ends up killing the lion. He goes down there. On the way back, the lion is already dead. He's not supposed to touch anything dead. While that happens, a hive of bees, honeybees, set up shop there, and he sees it and wants some of that honey. And so he takes some of that honey, touches the dead thing. He wasn't supposed to do that, and then he gives it to his mom and dad as well. And the list goes on, all right, of different things that he did that he kind of went out of the way, and it kind of broke some of his vows right there. So in verse number 15 of our text, we see the first mention of the word heart, Judges 16:15. And she said unto him, how canst thou say, I love thee, when thy heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times, and hast not told me wherein thy great strength lieth. So Delilah is there. She is trying to be sneaky and kind of not so subtle to me, trying to get him, why is he so strong? Where does the secret to his strength lie? And he gave her 3 different ways. You tie me with this, tie me up with that, do this to my hair, and I won't have any strength. And of course, they were all lies. And she asked in verse 15, then when thy heart, why would you say that when your heart is not with me? And we'll see this surface again in verse 17 and 18. And then he told her all his heart, talking about the heart of the matter here, and said unto her, there hath not a razor come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I will become weak and be like any other man. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his, what? Heart, she sent and called him to the Lord, called for the Lord of the Philistines, saying, come up this once, for he has showed me all his heart. Then the Lord of the Philistines came up unto her and brought money in their hands. So the premise I want to make then is this. If Samson would have been faithful in the issues of the heart, do you think he would have gotten the situations that he got himself into? No. All right? So is it right to assume that if our heart is right, it does affect what we say, how we say it, it does affect our attitude, it does affect our actions, right? Okay. So that's why we have to deal with the heart of the matter. Right? So 3 things quickly right here. In order to get Samson unfaithful in the issues of the heart, if you're taking notes, number 1, she had to get him, or she tried to get to him physically. Okay? Physically. Why do I say that? What is my basis? Look at verse 6. Delilah said to Samson, tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. So she appealed to what? His strength, right? The physical characteristics of the guy. Here's a man who knew he was strong. He boasted of his strength. Several times he's like, if you do this, I won't be able to do it. Pow! He goes all Hulk on her, right? Blows up, bows up, throws the green vines off of him. He takes the new ropes and wicks of a candle. This guy knows he's a beast, okay? And so he boasts of his strength. His identity, think about this, was wrapped up in his strength, was he not? He was known for how strong he was. That's how he defined himself. You don't know who I am? I'm the guy who took the gate of the city up on top of the hill there. I'm the one that set that field on fire. Yeah, I'm the one. Yeah. And so when she went all, Samson, you're so strong, tell me how on him, it started messing him up, right? It started messing with his mind here. And that's how we get messed up in our faithfulness, I believe, of the heart as well. A lot of times it's the physical. Now hear me. It's the physical appeal that we get messed up on. What do I mean by this? How we look, our weight, right? Our wrinkles, our spots, our gray hair, right? All that, does it not take a toll on us? My wife's going through that right now. Oh, shoot. I said, don't tell her. I hope she don't watch this. But this thing of turning 50 for her is, man, the gray hairs, it's messing with her mind. And I get it because, look, we put a lot of stock in the physical aspects of our lives, right? No one, I mean, your muscles used to go up, guys. Now it's kind of droop a little bit, right? I mean, they're going the wrong way. We're yielding to gravity. You know what I mean? It's beating us. But it takes a toll on us. Our financial means, that's physical, right? What we can or what we can't do, what we buy or what we can afford, what we can't afford. I mean, our positions in life. You know, by this time in my life, I should be here. By this time in my life, I should be there. You know, and so we you know, whether we're a boss or manager or CEO or president, you know, versus our hearts are challenged and are changed here because it messes with us. We become unfaithful. We can become unfaithful to the necessary things because of the physical appeal in our lives, and we rush to try to manage those things. So first of all, she tried to get to him physically. All right, and so we see that played out in verse number 10 and verse number 13. Thou hast mocked me, you know. All right. So then number 2, she tried to get to him emotionally. Emotionally, when the physical appeal didn't work, Delilah appealed to the emotions of Samson. Somebody tell me why. Look at the passage there, or if you know the story, tell me how and where she tried to get to him emotionally. I gave you the first one physically. How did she try to get to him emotionally?
In verse 15, she said, how can you say I love you?
Boom.
You know, how can you love me if you won't tell me the truth?
Yeah, she's appealing to the emotions, right? How can thou say I love thee when thy heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times. Thou hast not told me where thy great strength lies. Here's the appeal to the emotions. How can you say you love me when you've lied to me 3 times? Made fun of me 3 times. If you really loved me, you'd tell me. Now, guys, has there ever been a time where we may have done something for our wives because they used this line on us? If you really love me. Brother Megan says, no way. No way, huh? Baby, if you love me, you're going to take the trash out. You know I love you. I'm going to take the trash out, you know? Baby, you know, if you really love me, you would add that room on to the side. You know we really need it. Got grandbaby's coming, right? So the faithfulness of his heart was tempted, and he began to fail. All right? That's when the appeal to his emotions was employed, that's where he began to crack a little bit. Strong man. But she found the crack. She found the kryptonite a little bit. Where's the application for us in this area of the emotional appeal concerning the faithfulness of our heart? How does that play out in mine and your lives today? Anybody? Do we make good decisions when we're emotional? No. When we're angry, do we make good decisions? Good choices? How about when we're scared? You know the horror movies? You know, they make the most terrible decisions in the whole world. They're scared to death, right? Let's go hide in the graveyard. Really? You know? Silly. Let's go to the basement. Yeah, no. When we're worried, do we make good decisions? When we're sad? No. When we're emotionally appealed to and tempted. So if our emotions are being played hormonally or externally, right, our hearts can become less than faithful. Correct? All right. So she tried to get to him physically. She tried to get to him emotionally, but we see a third area of appeal, and she tried to get to him. She tried to get in his head. She tried to get to him mentally. Somebody tell me where we see that at. You showed me where the emotional appeal was. Where is the mental appeal? Verse 16. And it came to pass when she pressed him daily. You ever drug your fingernails down a chalkboard? The old-fashioned chalkboard?
Oh, yeah.
And it grates you. It grates me. You know what's worse than that to me? When you accidentally take a butter knife and you hit your teeth when you're pulling it out. You ever done that? Oh, man. Try it when you get home today. See if it doesn't mess with you so much. This is terrible. That's what's going on. She pressed him daily with her words, and she urged him so that his soul was vexed unto death. She drove him almost to the point of insanity. I mean, this was more than. I mean, this was an intense mental appeal. It finally drove him to a mental state, no doubt. It drove him crazy, all right? Day after day, to the point where he lost his mind. So we're talking about the mental appeal right here. So, let me ask you this. How can our mental estate affect the faithfulness of our hearts? Yeah. If we're about to lose our minds, are we making rash decisions? No. If we're not right in the head, in our thinking, we respond wrong. We make silly decisions. Our choices, again, are messed up. Let me wrap this up here. After Delilah tried to get to Samson through the physical appeals, through the emotional appeal, to the mental, stress there, we see the results. We see the outcome of this. Because of those appeals, Samson was affected spiritually. So we see the physical, mental, emotional. Now we see the spiritual, all right, effect here. Somebody tell me where that is. Where is that in our verse or in our scripture? Anybody see it? Judges 6.
He told with all of his heart.
Okay, he did. Keep going.
Told about cutting his hair.
Okay, keep going. Keep going. But that's where we're at. That's part of it. That's the spiritual aspect of it. All right. You got your words just a little bit backwards there, but that's exactly the verse I'm talking about. All right. Oh, you said he wished not. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right. I thought you said he wished. Yeah, you're right. Look at verse 16. And we'll get to that because you're in verse 20. You're absolutely right, Mr. Hawkins. And it came to pass when she pressed him daily with her words, she urged him so the soul was vexed to death. Then he told her his heart. Then he said to her, "Thou hast not come a razor upon my head. I have been a Nazarite unto God." So he talks about some spiritual things here, right? He starts to give a testimony a little bit. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. She saw that. Boom. She called those guys. They came in, and it says that verse 20. Here it is. She said, "The Philistines be upon thee, Samson." He awoke out of his sleep, and he said, "I will go out as other times before, because I am the man. I'll shake myself." And he says he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. He didn't even realize his spiritual state. Y'all, this is where I believe some of us may be here today. We've been hit by all three of these areas plus some. Physically, perhaps you're exhausted. Trying to measure up maybe, or get ahead emotionally. Maybe you're a basket case. Mentally, perhaps you're days away from a straitjacket and slippers without laces. And as a result, not real faithful. The perception of faithfulness, because you're here, we see you, but not really faithful. We may give that perception, but in actuality we're not. I named my other small group that I do on Wednesday nights faithful or faithfuled, F-O-O-L-E-D, or faithful, F-U-L. We might think we're faithful, but we can fool ourselves into thinking that, because we, just like Samson, can let our hearts and our minds, our emotional state, physical state, our mental state get so out of whack. And it all goes back down to the heart of the matter, right? We saw it several times. Tell me your heart. Show me your heart. Hey, come, He showed me all His heart. We have to be faithful in the areas of the heart on how we feel before we can ever get faithful in the other areas of our life. It doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't matter how long we've been saved. These are principles that we can apply in our life. Comments, questions, thoughts there? Anyone want to add to that?
One thing about Samson, maybe I'm dismissing it.
We hope that was an encouragement to you tonight. You may want to know more information. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you'd like to pray with somebody and talk to somebody about some spiritual matters in your life. We have a pastoral care line, and we would love for you to be able to call. We have pastors standing by right now to be able to take those calls and assist you. We also have Wednesday night program for our teens as well as our young people. We have an Awana program here, and perhaps you or someone you know might like to be a part of that. You can find this and a whole lot more information on our website, VictoryBaptist.Church. God bless you and have a great evening.